From wartime Holland to a new life in America, today's guest shares powerful, heartfelt stories of resilience, family, and tradition. Her journey is a reminder that even in the hardest moments, hope endures, and the spirit of the season can travel across generations and across oceans. Welcome to Santa's About, the podcast spreading Christmas cheer year-round. I'm Santa Claus, and I'm here to share stories that inspire, challenge you to take action, and remind you that goodness still exists in the world. Today's conversation is going to have you smiling, so let's get started. Welcome and Merry Christmas. Today I get to meet with a delightful couple, Ralph and Celia Page, and they have quite a life story here. Ralph and Celia Page are good friends of Santa Claus here, and they raised their family in the San Francisco, California area, but the great story is what came from your childhood experiences, and we're going to find out a lot. Celia is originally from Holland, and Ralph originally from California. And so let's get right in and find out more about your lives. So let's start way back. First of all, I shouldn't say way back because it wasn't that far.
It is way
long ago. So fascinating story. Celia, you were born in Holland. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be in this world and your early childhood in Holland.
Well, I was born in a little town in Holland by the name of Alkmaar, and it's known as a cheese town. And on the weekend, they would bring all the cheeses in, and they would grade them, and it's really for tourists, but it's really cozy. And there's all samples from all the different Gouda and Edam, and that was really nice. But we had a really difficult time in 1939, when the Second World War broke out. And so everything changed. And you were kind of afraid who you could trust, because it's like our political stuff here in America now. But in 1945, the war was almost over, and it was known as really the most difficult time of the war. It was known as the hunger winter in Holland. And there were people who were starving because food was not available. We had no electricity in our homes, and no food. Food was hard to get. So there, on January 30th, the little one was to be born, and the doctor couldn't come because they were picking up our men and young men for labor to work in labor camps.
They being the Nazis.
Right, the Nazis. So my father was in hiding, and they tried to contact the doctor when the time was ready, and we got word that he wouldn't come because, and Mother looked outside and Dad, and they could see because there was a razzia, and that was when the Nazis were going sometimes door to door and coming in and looking for men.
Oh my goodness.
So my father and Mother delivered me, and it was an air raid. We could hear. So they went under took Rome under the grand piano, and I came.
Oh my goodness. So you were born under
I was born under the piano. It was the safest place, and then the house shook.
Oh my goodness. So what was the reason behind wanting to round up the men of the village?
They were being sent to, it was the end of the war, and Hitler knew he was losing.
Right.
And so they would take them, and they would, for the war effort, whatever needed to be done, they would take them in as labor. And so we had Daddy in hiding.
Oh my
and
goodness.
We had him in our kitchen. We had kind of a linoleum, and you could pull it up, and then he'd go under the house. And I think there was 3 times Mother said that occurred. and you just hold your breath.
Wow.
But Nico, my oldest brother, was 10, and Helen was 6, and then there was Mother and Dad, and one on the way. And so when it was time, the family prayed together, and the kids got in this special little area under the house, and Dad delivered me.
Wow.
But the nice part was 4 hours later, the doctor was able to come by, and he said, Nico, he says, you did everything right. And he says, but Corey, you did the most. And they were surprised the next morning because they had a redheaded daughter.
So the
we
red.
had no electricity. I was born under candlelight.
Oh, wow. Maybe that's why you were a redhead, the candlelight.
I don't know. But
Was the milkman a redhead?
no.
Oh, Ralph.
You didn't want to put that in. That was just the thing Mother said. My mom had such a great sense of humor.
So were you the only redhead in the family?
Yes,
then? Oh,
but my
goodness.
father had a red beard
Oh,
when he
okay.
grew it. So I knew I belonged.
Yes.
Now I knew I belonged with a wonderful family.
Oh, that's delightful.
But because we're talking about Christmas,
Yeah.
I'd like to share a little bit about the very last Christmas that we remember. Because during the war, you did what you could, but you didn't do hardly anything.
Right.
You just wanted to live. And but in 1948 was the first time Daddy came home with a little Christmas tree, and Mother put it on a little table, and we had what they call a Sarah. A Sarah is where they have the two doors that close.
Yeah.
And I remember this like it was yesterday. And we were not allowed to go into the Sarah, and we could hear stuff going on, and we wanted to peek. I remember the kids telling me I was just what was I, 3 or 4 months old? Then I was 3.5, 4. And so anyway, there the night came, and the doors opened very slowly, and there stood this beautiful tree with candles, real candles, with a big pot of water on the ground in case. And my dad was playing the piano, and I don't remember the Liedje, which is the song, what they sang, but Sinterklaas kapoentje, gooi wat in mijn schoentje, gooi wat in mijn laarsje, dank u Sinterklaasje. That was it. I've never forgotten it. It's about Santa Claus, kind of St. Nicholas.
Sure.
Call him.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
then in Holland, in our family, and because of the 5 Years' War, we never really celebrated, during the war, just little things. But even after, we loved, it was called St. Nicholas, and it was December the 5th. And Mother and Dad had got us an orange, and we had not eaten an orange forever. And it seemed to me like it was this big, of course, but I'm sure it was just a normal size. And soap, you'd have no idea how difficult it was to get soap during the last years of the war. And
Really?
so cute. That was always a gift my dad would give my mother for the rest of her life. At her birthday was soap.
Is that
And
right?
I used to think, that's stupid.
Right.
And then when you start talking to your parents, I said, Mommy, why does Daddy always get you soap? And then she told me, she said, Leafy, that's an endearment. She said, Leafy, we didn't have soap.
Wow.
And it was such a luxury. So even in my later years, when I was a teenager, we always had lots of soap in the bathroom, in the little
Right.
cupboard. Yeah, it was cute.
So it was a combination of the ability to give a gift, and then to give a gift that actually had
Right.
some real meaning,
Right.
that brought back memories of.
And we loved it.
Yeah.
When I spoke with my siblings, we just everyone remembers that particular Christmas, and how wonderful it was. But then, later in the evening, Mother would get a rug, just a small rug like you have in front of the sink, and she'd put it down on the ground, and there'd come a knock on the door, And what's that? And Mother would fling open the front door, and there was St. Nicholas. And with his sidekick, Sparta Pete. And Sparta Pete carried the big sack, probably like this.
Right.
And he would throw in paper nota on the ground that would fall on the rug. And paper nota were a brown, kind of real hard little cookie, and we loved it. It was, I'm not sure, but I think it was gingery tasting,
Uh-huh.
And I've grown to love it, but I can't ever find them here in America.
Wow.
But anyway, that would happen. And then Sinterklaas, I was like this. And he'd say, "Kom, sitte." That means come and sit by Sinterklaas. And he'd put his arm around you and he'd say, "So, Leafy, were you a good girl? I'd say, a nice Leaf Macy." And I'd say, "Oh, yeah, that was nice." And he had a list. Oh, I had a list that I brought out. Anyway, in that list would be our names. And Sinterklaas would read. He'd say, "Well, I see that you've been a pretty good girl. Well, maybe you cry a little bit too much or whine." Just little naughty little things. And I was thinking, how does he know that? And then it would go over to Helen, and Helen would get her comments, and Nico would get his. But we just adored it. And so we all got a little something. That was when we got something from Sparta Pete,
Right.
But if we were naughty, we had put out our wooden shoe, and we had no coal in it. We had a lot of paper notes, so we figured we were pretty good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if you were a little bit naughty, no paper.
No. Well, my grandma, my Oma, she would take care of everything if there was
Even
a naughty
if
one.
you were naughty.
Even if there was a naughty one.
Right. But in place of the cookies, you would find coal in the shoe.
You would find
if you
coal.
were naughty.
That's right.
Anybody that you knew
I
that
don't
got
remember.
a shoe full of coal?
I do remember. I remember there was one little boy, and he was a real pest. He was a neighborhood pest, and he was very sad because he got coal in his shoe. That was the only one I can recall, but I think his Oma made up for it too.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it was cute. But that was a very memorable, and because of how difficulty getting any foodstuffs or even presents, unless you could make them. That was just a glorious Christmas, and there was so much love in the home. And my grandparents were the neatest people. And I never figured out it was Opa until I was a little bit older. He was really cute.
I really love that because you had very little.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
cookies and an orange.
An orange.
Right.
And soap.
And soap. But the love that was in the family was what made it memorable.
Yes.
Quick pause, friends. This adventure, it's brought to you by Curb and Turf, the free app that connects RVers with private landowners. You see, as Mrs. Claus and I travel the country, we need safe, welcoming places to camp. And Curb and Turf delivers private spots all across the U.S. So when you plan your next trip, you gotta ask yourself, why not camp where Santa camps? Download the free Curb and Turf app today.
Yeah, and when I talked with my brother and sister, when we came to America in 1949, after a year and a half, Mother gave birth to a real American. And so he didn't remember any of these stories, but we told him so many times that he even picks up accents since it's kid. He felt that he missed out on something, but he didn't. My parents were always so neat with the kids.
So you were around 4 or 5 years
When
old
I came
when you immigrated. And
on the Nieuwe Amsterdam was the ship we came on.
wow. And you went straight to...
We got off. There's so many wonderful stories. We had so many miracles.
Yeah.
I can't begin to tell you the miracles we had. But my father spoke a little English. It's mandatory that you learn English in Holland in school. Of course, I never went to school there.
Sure.
And my sister and brother had a little inkling, mother none. But when we arrived in Hoboken, New Jersey, we didn't know where we were or what was going on. And there was a missionary who recognized my parents. He was there on some business, and he took us to the right train, and we got onto the train and went to Salt Lake City, where we were met up with some friends that we knew to get on mission.
Right.
And then our sponsor, who was Dr. Emery R. Ranker in Oakland, he was a doctor, they took us into their home in Lafayette and treated us just beautifully. And I remember Brother Ranker, when he would get back home in the evenings, he'd go out to his beehive in the backyard. And I remember as a little girl, he would always give me what is that? Where they grilled their
honeycomb.
The honeycomb, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd always give me some to suck in on.
Oh,
I thought that
wow.
was wonderful.
So fascinating.
But it
And-
was wonderful.
And so that's how you ended up in
We ended up in
California.
California, Walnut Creek, California.
Oh, amazing.
And our first Christmas, my dad, I can still see him, he said, Leafies, that's an endearment.
Sure.
He says, Leafies, Daddy and Mommy don't have the ability to give you a cozy Christmas, but we're going to do it like we did in Holland, just with little, and we were satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And it was, we opened the door that day, here's Christmas, and Holland was cold at Christmas time. Here it was warm, we had the door open. I remember my mother saying, Leafy, it's so hot. And there on the front porch was a box, and it was this big. And the members of the church had all put something in it for us.
Oh, my goodness.
It was just, in fact, my brother received a BB gun, and he says, oh, Mom, what should I shoot at? Because,
Sure.
and Mother we didn't like guns.
Right. You
Because
would
of the
just
war.
come out of the war,
Yeah.
sure.
So he shot the light, the street light to get it. We ran in the house real fast.
So did Sparta Pete fill his shoe with coal
Well,
after shooting the...
We didn't have a Santa Claus that year.
Oh,
but we
okay.
had, but we received, about 2 years later, I received a package from Holland from our grandparents.
Right.
And so, but then we had to transfer over to a different St. Nicholas, whose name was Santa Claus.
Right.
And my mom said, Nico, she said, the Rankers want to take us to Oakland because there's going to be a Santa Claus in the window of Oakland, Capwell's. And let's take Celia and let her see what an American Santa Claus is.
Not
So I can remember standing there looking at this man with a white beard. And I thought, I don't know.
because
And
you
then he
were...
wanted to put me on his lap.
Right.
And I wasn't too thrilled about it, but it was very nice. And he gave me a candy cane.
Yeah.
And I thought, I guess we'll have to be okay. We're going to be here in America now. He's going to have to do. But he really did, because we just loved taking our kids to the Emporium Capwell's in
Yeah.
San Francisco every year. It was so nice.
That's great. So you, your early memory was Santa Claus,
Yeah.
St. Nicholas. There was more of the religious
Yes.
figure, and then transitioned to Santa Claus,
Claus.
which America borrowed a lot of different
They did.
things from around the world
They
and
did.
kind of amalgamated them all into one and called him Santa Claus.
Yep, call him Santa Claus.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and our kids loved doing that, going and sitting on his lap in San Francisco in the Emporium.
And so Grandma and Grandpa, they stayed in Holland.
Yes, my grandparents, but they came about 4 years later,
Okay.
and they stayed for a year and a half. But my grandma got so homesick for her daughter, who was still in Holland, that they went back to
Yeah.
Holland. But
That's great.
it was wonderful having them, because my grandfather had the most wonderful personality, and he was so full of the dickens. We'd go berry picking, and they'd say, Leafy, now you pick the ones in the bottom, and I'll pick the ones on the top. And we would eat them, some of them. And we got home, and my mom says, Opa, that means Grandpa, Opa, you were gone a long time, and you get very many berries, and he said, she ate them all. And I loved that. And then we'd play checkers.
Yeah.
And he made up the rules as he went, so he always won.
Sure. Why not?
And then one day he said, and he gave me a lecture. It wasn't a lecture. He was so cute. He gave me a lesson, I'll call it, about turning the lights off when I go out of the
Right.
room. I remember that so well. And that was really fun. So I still do that. The minute I go out of a room and the lights on, I turn it
Yeah.
off. And I taught it to our grandchildren, kids.
Well, that's great. Then tell us a little bit about your early childhood, Ralph. And you were a real all-American California boy, huh?
Yes, and my mother and dad separated when I was about 2 years old,
Uh-huh.
and I was put in the hands of my little Aunt Irma and Uncle Kurt. And Uncle Kurt was my dad's brother, and that was a lot of fun. I was well loved there. Christmas there, I remember we had a tree, and I never saw Santa.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, but I remember one Christmas where the kids came over in the afternoon and they started picking up my toys, and I wanted them all to go home. So I was sent to my bedroom. And then after that, when I was 7, my dad married Moby Dick, my stepmother. That was my nickname for her. Well, the reason was we used to go to the beach. A whaling ship came,
And harpoon.
and they tried to harpoon her. And it was a gay harpoonist, and he said, if I stick her in the tail, she'll go crazy. So that was my nickname for her, and she really loved the name. She was,
I'm sure.
yeah. But she was a good woman, and a little stern.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Very stern,
funny.
but we had Christmases there. I think my best Christmas is when I got a dog.
Oh,
And her name was Maisie. And she was a Cocker Spaniel.
oh,
So that was my favorite Christmas.
Yeah.
that's great.
We had that with the kids when they were growing up.
Yeah.
Our kids loved dirt bike riding.
Uh-huh.
And we lived in a home that backed up to a mountain. It was wonderful for dirt bike riding. And
Oh, yeah.
the youngest boy, Sean, he was always excited. He wanted a dirt bike. And the older boy one day went to a friend's who was selling a dirt bike. Wasn't it called an 80? An 80? It
Yeah.
was small.
Yeah.
And he earned money to buy that dirt bike for our
So that we'd
little
buy
son.
him a new one.
Yeah, we figured the we figured the psychology behind it afterwards.
Yeah.
But my parents were visiting with us, and Ralphie, the older one who got the bike for his brother, made a little note, and he said, "We've seen our gifts. Now I want you to go out in the front yard and see I bought you another gift." And so Sean opened the door, saw that bike, and I'm not kidding, he flew off the deck.
Yes.
I mean, it was like he was just flying. He was so excited. So everyone was praising Ralphie, the older boy,
Right.
for having bought the bike for his little brother. So we felt obligated to buy him a.
Of course.
But
Which was all planned
it was
on
wonderful,
Ralphie's
though.
part.
Do you
right?
know, all summer long I hear
Right.
riding up through the hills. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was really great.
And so you two got together and started your family. Did any of the Christmas traditions that you both grew up with carry on?
Well, yes, every, let's see, it was probably when we were married for maybe 5 or 6 years, I decided to have St. Nicholas evenings in our home.
Yeah.
So we pick a family in the ward,
Mm-hmm.
and usually just no more than 4 or 5 kids.
Right.
And we'd make a traditional dinner. We'd set the table all out, and we'd sing some songs that I haven't printed out. And of course, I always knew I was interclass telling their little stories. Right. And that was really fun.
Yeah.
We decorated up the house with the Dutch theme and the table. We had one little boy come in, and his mother said, "Don't feel offended, but he doesn't like to eat a lot of foods, and so don't be offended if he doesn't eat." Well, Ralph made the Dutch gehaktballs, which is meatballs, Dutch
right.
meatballs. That kid ate 4 of them. And she says, "I need the recipe." And I thought that was a fun memory.
Yeah.
So what does make up a traditional Dutch Christmas dinner?
Okay, for us, our family, it was gehaktballs, Azuresla, which was, it had beets, and it sounds awful to an American.
Like a potato salad.
Yeah, it's like a potato salad, but it had beets on the top.
Yeah.
And what else did we all? Oh, there's always potatoes and mashed potatoes. And we'd have vanilla and chocolate puddings for dessert. What else was on there? Oh, red cabbage.
Yeah.
And they were foods we ate during the year too, but the gehaktballs were always special. Meat was hard to get.
Yeah.
And and my sister had a real good recipe. And that was always fun. I was amazed, except for the Hazuresla, everybody. Oh,
yeah.
And my favorite are zoute droppies. And those are licorice, but they're salted. And I love it because Americans hate them.
Yeah,
And so I would speak at school about the war many times, and I always served them. I'd have our grandson serve the sautadroppies at the very end, and you could always hear. And that was the highlight of my teaching job that day. But then there'd always be 2 or 3 just loved them. So, but you'll find them all over in Holland. They have little stores, and they have all different varieties of salt licorice.
So do you still carry on the tradition of the traditional Dutch dinner?
We do when we invite people, because we're doing it for ourselves, but we love doing it for others, but we get such satisfaction out of doing that. And it's nice because the 5th is St. Nicholas.
Right.
And then Daddy in Holland, when everything was over, then he'd kind of calm us down, and he'd come and read from the Bible the story of the birth of Christ. So from that point on until the 25th, you're doing things with your family.
Right.
It's really nice. We put up our little wooden nativity scenes, and that was really cozy. And we did that when we did the St. Nicholas too with the families. And the children, we'd let them set out this little set and the scene. And they got doing that.
And your immigration story, incredible. And then because your family was so steeped in the love of family and music, your father was quite a musician.
And he had the operetta Cecilia. That was before I was born. And so they did some old classics, Merry Widow, Gypsy Bear, and Student Prince.
And then you became quite a prominent dancer.
Well, I wasn't prominent, but I danced.
What, you danced in San Francisco Ballet?
I did one season, but I did a lot at other places.
Yeah. And then you were also a singer.
Yes, I sang at Woodminster Light Opera Association in the Oakland Hills. And I loved doing that. That was done. My brother conducted, and the music, the orchestra.
That's
so
great.
That was fun. So we could drive in together and to the rehearsals. That was really fun.
And then you were quite musical yourself, weren't you, Ralph? You could play the piano, or the radio, I mean?
Yes.
The radio, yeah.
You could play the radio?
Yeah, that was it. I did take violin lessons when I was 4.
Yeah?
For a week. And that didn't work out.
Thank you for sharing your story. This is great. The things that I'm taking away from this is no matter what situation you're in, born under a piano while your father is being hunted, essentially, being raised in what you wouldn't call an ideal situation with your parents splitting up, but coming together And look what you've created from some difficult situations, but also some very loving situations.
You know, my parents just adored Ralph.
Oh.
They just adored
Well, what's
Ralph.
not to adore?
Oh, that's
Well, yes.
true.
I mean, look at him.
No,
About a month before we got married, Celia was working at Campwell's, and I got there to take her someplace, and her mother said, "We are going upstairs and we're going to pray." So up the stairs we went to a bedroom, and she got behind me, put me in a headlock, and put her knees on mine and shoved me on the bed. And then the prayer
and the
went
kneeling
something like,
position.
"Heavenly Father, may this boy become a Mormon, or may he be hit by a truck before he marries my daughter."
It's highly changed because I know my mother. But she did make her go upstairs and pray with her.
Yeah,
That's what I heard. That was,
I'm sure.
yeah. She was an amazing woman. She had her husband. She went to the forest and cut wood for when she was going to have the baby, and
Yeah.
Because she could go out and do anything. She
Yes.
just had to make all the preparation.
she was a tough
She
cookie.
really was. I could tell you a story. I don't know if I shared this one with you. It has nothing. It was about Christmas time during the war, and she was expecting me. And she said, "Daddy," she says, "Papa," you had to move wood, you know, because we had to try to make some warmth when the baby comes. And he says, "Leafy, I can't go and get it because I might be picked up." She says, "Let's pray." And they prayed, and she went out, and she had this thing that you put the wood in. And she went behind where we lived, and there's a place called the Donker Downs, called the Dark Dunes. And it was kind of fenced off, but there was a space. And it was real early in the morning, so it was still dark, you know. And there was a sign that says "Verboten." But she had to get the wood since she was under prayer, so she felt, "I'll go in and get the wood." She had a little song. She started singing to her halt. And she started singing to her halt. That was a German soldier. He says, "I can shoot you." And she said, things came into my mouth, out of my mouth, that I was so surprised. She says, "Can you see I'm expecting a baby? I need wood." And he paused, and she said, "Do you have any children?" And he still paused. He says, "Give me that saw." And he sawed the wood, and he put it in her lap. He says, "I'll follow you home with it." And she says, "Oh, no, you won't. What will my neighbors think?" Being a German soldier.
Right.
We had wood on our back porch for quite some time. Early
Really?
in the morning
Yeah.
after that. So we learned from our parents that there's good in all people, but you have to
Absolutely.
look.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for those experiences because, you know,
Yeah.
God lives.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We could be here for 10 years.
I know.
Oh, hey, I could sit here and just listen to your stories for ages and ages. Well, great stories. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Well,
So-
Dr.
You are
Bishop,
Bill Coleman.
I got to give you a sacerdote.
I'm going to take one.
Upstanding here.
Oh, ready? Are
Upstanding.
you ready?
Okay. Hey, that was pretty good.
Oh, hearing these stories has been so deeply inspiring to me. It's a reminder that the lives around us hold incredible history, courage, and wisdom. So here's this week's challenge. I challenge you to set aside a little time this week to visit a neighbor or call a relative or even strike up a conversation with someone new at a park. Ask them to share their story, and you might be surprised at how quickly time fades away and how strongly you walk away feeling it was time well spent. Thanks for listening, and drop me a comment about your experience. I hope that story inspired you as much as it did me. All right, now, it's challenge time, and you know what to do, right? Well, do it. Share it with the hashtag Santa's About and tag us. Let's create and then spread some goodness. And if you loved this episode, share it with someone who needs the inspiration, because small acts create big ripples, and kindness, it should be a lifestyle, not just a holiday tradition. And if you want more, check out our premium community at santasabout.com. New episodes every Tuesday. Subscribe and leave us a review if you're feeling generous. And remember, some folks, why, they're just one hug away from the nice list. So be good, for goodness sake. And we'll see you next week.